Freedom Healthworks is the direct primary care accelerator. We help doctors across the country start fresh in direct primary care. With Freedom Healthworks, you work with a team, not a checklist. Visit freedomhealthworks.com and together we can achieve true freedom in direct care.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Healthcare Americana. I am your host, Christopher Habig, CEO and co-founder of Freedom Healthworks. Today, we're telling a really remarkable story coming from what we term kind of the patient world. And as you can see, as an aside, for those of you watching at home, we did revamp the studios here. So hopefully that's a little bit better picture quality, gets a little bit more depth, and you get to see all of our interior decorating. So check out our videos online. But I'd like to introduce you to Brandon Hudgins, who has an incredible story overcoming disease that was potentially crippling, to his passion, to his career, and really to his lifestyle. And Brandon's such a enigmatic speaker that I wanted him to really tell us more about his story, so you don't have to listen to me drone on and on about it on this current episode. So without much further ado, Brandon, welcome to Healthcare Americana.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. Like I was saying, kind of, we were talking offline. We spend a lot of time talking to medical professionals and people out there that are really trying to take better care of people, understanding that, you know, I got my t-shirt on today, that health insurance doesn't exactly equal health care, and that there's so many layers in between that don't need to be there for a lot of good reasons. But I want to focus on your story, again, coming from more of the patient side of it, that you have a ton of experience with kind of the status quo of the medical system. And these are, again, stories that I get excited about. And I think a lot of my listeners will be like, well, Chris, you get excited over everybody you get to talk to. And that's true. Hearing from people who have had those experiences in the healthcare system, have overcome, a potentially debilitating disease, is really inspiring and really, motivating for a lot of people out there. So give us a little bit of your background and what you're currently doing. I know that the delay of the Summer Olympics last year was kind of threw a wrench in your plan. So I'll let you take that and run with it.
All right. So I guess the thing that kind of ties all of this and brings, me as an athlete into your world of the medical profession is my rare disease. I'm right now, just to give some context, I turned 34 in January this year, but 13 and a half years ago, I was diagnosed with a rare disease called granulomatosis with polyangiitis. So if anybody wants to try to spell that, go ahead, good luck. Generally, if I'm in person, I'll ask somebody to try to spell it and give away something, but nobody's actually won it right. Nobody's gotten it right yet.
You are talking to a lot of physicians out there, though. A lot of medical minds. So I'm sure some of them will be sending an email and saying, "Hey, what do I win?"
They'll be, yeah. What do I win? I'll give them a book. How about that? But so I was diagnosed with granulomatosis with polyangiitis, which is GPA for short. It was formerly known, when I was actually diagnosed in 2008, it was called Wegener's granulomatosis. But Alfred von Wegener, the guy that discovered the disease, was actually a Nazi doctor. So in 2012 or 2013, they actually pulled his naming rights, and I guess rightfully so. But 2012, 2013 is kind of when they were like, I don't know that this guy should, have this title anymore.
Yeah.
So, but also there's in our world, like a lot of there's 17 different vasculitises, and a lot of them had names like that. And oftentimes you find yourself in an ER and you tell a doctor that you've got this rare disease, and you say something, I've got Wegener's, and it doesn't really tell them what the disease is. But by going by that textbook medical definition of granulomatosis with polyangiitis, it will give an actual healthcare professional the knowledge, like, okay, this is what this is. It's inflammation of small blood vessels that create granulomas that destroy tissue. So like the name's kind of there for them to break down and figure it out. Because more than likely, especially if you're at a minute clinic or like a fast med kind of urgent care ER situation, and you're dealing with a doctor, they probably read about it in a chapter in med school like 15, 20 years ago. So you kind of have to be your own advocate, which I had to start learning at 21 years old. I acquired a certain set of skills in college college and in my 20s that most kids are worrying about, what they're going to do with their career, what they're going to do with their life, how they're going to pay back their student loans, how they're going to find a job. And kind of in my early 20s, I was battling my health. And so I learned very well, very early on, how to navigate the waters of the health insurance companies, which I have pretty much, and I think you would probably agree on this. I call them the mafia. Like that's what they're
cartel. I hear cartel a lot. Mafia,
yeah, cartel.
Usually a cartel.
Yeah, and I'm like, change my mind. Nobody's changed my mind yet. So to that point, I also haven't been interviewed by somebody from the health insurance industry. So, but I learned to navigate that water, and it's, just to give everybody a little bit of background knowledge on what it's like to have my disease. It took them about 7 months from the time that I first started exhibiting symptoms to when I was diagnosed. And it started with sinus and breathing issues, which tons of people have at some point in time in their life. And not everybody that goes into if you hear something running around, we got a kitten like a month ago and she's off the chain. But I lost my, so, it took them about 7 months to diagnose me. And not everybody that has some sort of asthma or breathing issue or sinus infection is going to end up with a rare disease. But it took me 7 months of getting sicker and sicker and sicker, and different antibiotics, different steroids. I had sinus surgery. None of that stuff really seemed to work. It was only after I had that sinus surgery and went back for my follow-up appointment that my ENT realized that like none of the stuff that he had done in my nose had actually healed. And he was like, something's wrong with your immune system. And so from there, it was about, I think 2 or 3 weeks before I had kind of the diagnosis that I have, that I got now. They had to do a bunch of tests, and there's not a definitive test. It's kind of looking at the symptoms and looking at some certain inflammation markers, like with the ANCA test and the C-ANCA test, and look at some other general inflammation markers to determine like, all right, we think this is what this is. So, April 23rd of 2008, I got my diagnosis. So we're actually about, this is March. So yeah, we're about a month out from me having had this for 14 years. So, it's been a tumultuous trip. It's, when I got the phone call, I like to kind of tell this story because it's circa 2008 and I was in college. I was a junior. I was actually watching my sister at a track meet because of course that's where I would be. But I had my old flip phone and I saw my doctor's office was calling me at like 6 o'clock at night, 6:15 at night, which is like, now we're all used to getting those text messages like, you've got an appointment tomorrow. But like back then when your doctor's office was calling you at 6:15 or 6:30, it was not a good sign. And when I answered the phone, it wasn't just one of my doctors, but 2 of my doctors. They were together in the office and had me on speakerphone. And it was like are you sitting down kind of thing. And I was like, well, yeah, I'm sitting down, but like I'm kind of in public. I hope this doesn't go too bad. And that's when they departed the information on me. And from there, they didn't give me a ton of information right off the bat. They're like, we found a rheumatologist at the Medical University of South Carolina, which for me was a 3-hour drive away, that we're going to, he's the guy that's kind of the closest to us that your health insurance will, will work with. So I either had to go to the Raleigh-Durham area, which was across state lines, or I had to go to the Medical University of South Carolina. So they helped me find a doctor and got me set up there at that research and teaching hospital. And it was actually a really good experience. That's actually still the best healthcare experience I've gotten. I mean, there was a sign in my doctor's waiting room, and I'll never forget this, that says like, if you've been waiting longer than 15 minutes, please tell the receptionist. Like
you don't see that anymore.
You don't see that anywhere ever. And as far as I know, that's still how that system operates. They've got stuff down pretty regimented there. They like when you would see a doctor there too, like, because they're all part of that hospital, you would get like, there was one time I saw like 3 different doctors in one day there, because I saw an eye doctor, an ear doctor, and then my rheumatologist. And when I get the bill, it's one bill. It's not 47 different bills, 3 different labs, 4 different scans. It's like an itemized thing that I can actually look through. That's not been my experience since then. with a lot of other places, but Dr. Brown down there took very good care of me. They got me at the time. The treatment regimen was 6 months of Cytoxan, which is a chemotherapy drug, orally taken every day with high doses of corticosteroids, which is prednisone. Funny that we kind of talking about this type of treatment right now, because that treatment was developed in the late 1980s by a guy named Dr. Anthony Fauci. He was the first doctor with his team of researchers that actually found a treatment regimen that would put my disease into remission. Because prior to that, it had about a 95% death rate 1 year after diagnosis. So, yeah. So obviously I'm kind of team Fauci. You know, I think he certainly had some stumbles here recently, but that treatment was still the standard care of treatment up until about 2013, when we got an immunotherapy drug called Rituxan. And so I spent 6 months on the Cytoxan. I was able to get off that, finally get off of corticosteroids. And, you know, during all of this, running had been ripped away from me. I'd been a Division I level athlete at a small school in my hometown in Rock Hill, South Carolina. And all I wanted to do was get back to running. And now I kind of had and this is probably a terrible person to look up to, but like I had my Lance Armstrong moment. I was like, I'm going to beat this thing. I'm going to get back out there. I'm going to be better than I ever was. I had been out for 2 years at that point, but I was like hell-bent on getting back. And my doctors didn't tell me that I couldn't come back. So I, of course, just put my nose to the grindstone. I actually transferred universities. I was done with undergrad school. Somehow I actually finished college during the middle of all this. You know, I'd had problems with, you know, because they'd given me you know, they'd been giving me a bunch of Vicodin and stuff for pain. So I ended up with a little bit of a pill problem at one point, and dealing with, because like you've got multiple doctors that are giving you a bunch of things and you don't really understand the dangers of what you're doing. But like, I realized the thing that got me off that was like, it was affecting my running when I was trying to come back. And I was like, I need to stop taking these. And so, because like with the inflammation that I had, just sometimes even moving and walking, even though it affects primarily my upper respiratory tract and my kidneys, the general inflammation can make walking, sitting, standing, laying down, anything kind of extremely painful. So you're trying to mitigate pain. And so that stuff had been given to me. So, you know, I had a little problem with that my senior year of college. So my junior and senior year of college of undergrad is kind of just a black hole. A lot going on personally, a lot going on, you know, as I was trying to navigate the waters of having a potentially rare and deadly disease and fighting that. But once I got on the other side of it and I realized I was gonna be able to kind of exercise and run again, I was like, well, and I ran a mile for the first time without stopping. I was like, all right, I can do this again. And so I went to graduate school at Appalachian State, studied exercise science, and the NCAA granted me 2 years an extra year to finish my remaining 2 years of college, which is the magical sixth year. So I was I was called grandpa on the team at App State because I was just the old guy.
Sure.
At 24 years old.
You got the double victory lap in there.
Yeah, I got the double victory lap, but I did manage to get a double degree. So at least I was, you know, not completely wasting my time.
You did do the Van Wilder plan.
Yeah, I wasn't on the Van Wilder plan. Although that did kind of, I remember trying to talk to a girl one time my last year there, and she's like, "Oh my God, you're so old," and she just like turned around and walked away from me. And I was like, "Okay, ouch. Next."
Ouch.
Yeah. So, yeah, but yeah. So I finished graduate school, and running, I was actually better than I was before I got sick. I was able to qualify for the first round of the NCAA championships. As far as an individual standpoint, from a team standpoint, we didn't lose a conference title while I was there. I helped us win 6 conference titles over those 3 years in cross country, indoor and outdoor track. I was part of 6 championships while I was there. So it was a fantastic experience. That's 2011. The time that I ran in 2011 at the end of the year in the 1500, which is the metric mile, which is what they run at the Olympics and stuff and the Olympic trials, was about 2 seconds away from qualifying for the Olympic trials. And I was like, well, I got to go for this. And so with not really any support. I got a job at a bed and breakfast in Boone, North Carolina, where Appalachian State's at, with a buddy of mine that was part of a professional training group up there. He helped me get a job, and I was kind of training alongside them for a bit. And my assistant coach from Appalachian State, James Snyder, started coaching me as soon as I graduated, and made a trip to Boulder, Colorado, trying to like chase this dream, and ended up back at home, broke on my parents' couch. Lived back home for about 6 months and trying to lead up to the Olympic trials in 2012. And I had my first relapse. And
So
then I had another relapse.
Yeah, Brian, let me stop there. Let's make sure we can catch our breath, because you just went over 4 years of your life living with a very deadly disease. You said 95% fatality rate within the first year before some of the advanced treatments came along here, and here you are, current day, 13, 14 years later, still doing well. So, I mean, that in and of itself, of having a 5% survival rate, graduating college, even though you might not remember some of your 300 and 400 level courses, battling addiction from opiates, and then getting back into it, having a successful remaining collegiate career in and of itself, admirable as hell. Like, kudos to you. That's incredible. What are the odds of somebody being able to do that? So I just want to make sure that we pause right there, so that everybody can kind of say, well, wow, this is a story about overcoming such odds and such adversity in and of itself. But it sounds like you're gearing us up to kind of the double fall here. And so you get back from the Boulder, Colorado. You didn't make the U.S. team in 2012. So you're back home.
Didn't even make the Olympic trials. I didn't even get the chance to go try.
So there goes a childhood dream, something you dreamed about since you were, first started running competitively. What is that like from a mental standpoint, to miss out, to come so close, come 2-3 seconds away from getting a chance to go compete with this nation's best runners, and then missing it, coming so close, and then knowing that I can do this, but now you have to wait 4 years. What the hell am I going to do in the next 4 years? And then, oh, by the way, you have this potentially deadly disease that you're still battling.
You're actually setting up exactly where I was getting ready to go. So I started I started experiencing a lot of mental health issues in that 2012, 2013 time. I mean, I'm a super type A personality. Obviously very driven, as we've kind of found out through the last few minutes of me barreling through the early parts of this story. That can also be a double-edged sword, and that definitely happened. And in 2012, I had my first panic attack. I didn't know it was a panic attack, but I was at my parents' house, and I completely broke down. And I was like, I can't keep training like this and not knowing what's going to happen with my health. This is just it was such a monumental letdown for me. Like, I literally was ripping posters off the walls and throwing all of my running stuff in the garbage can at my parents' house, like outside. And of course, my mom's in tears, my dad's going, and my dad was my high school coach. So like, he's been part of this journey with me. And I mean, still to this day, my dad, like, when I have a good workout, I'll call him and tell him. So like, my family's been a very, very integral part of this story. And here I am, just like canning it all away. Now, luckily my mom, of course, pulled everything out of the trash, but yeah, that's when the mental health stuff really, really kind of started for me. And I didn't know what I was experiencing, but at that stage, that like, white knuckling life and trying to just like bear down and get through it kind of started turning into this roller coaster of extreme highs and extreme lows. And that would honestly really go on for another year and a half before I was actually diagnosed with anxiety, depression, and panic attacks. And when I had my another panic attack in 2013, I had moved back to Boone and I was working, and I had, like, 2012, 2013 was kind of on and off again with my health and trying to get things into remission. And that's when Rituxan, which is the immunotherapy drug, came into play. And after going through some early treatments and stuff not looking particularly great, and your doctor's looking at you being like, if this doesn't work, we don't know what to do. Like, that's for a 25-year-old, 26-year-old, that's,
Heavy.
the impending sense of doom kind of, closes in. And I was literally at that point in time in 2013, living on some friends' couches in the mountains, valeting cars, like at a resort, and, drinking beer every day and partying and having fun. And like, had given up running completely, was going to try to find some kind of job in the running world. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And it was literally early fall, mid fall of 2013 that, like, through some runs with two of my best friends, I actually remembered that I missed it. And I had been battling my health for so long that I forgot how much I actually just loved running. And I was like, I'm not done with this. And then from pretty much late 2013 through 2016, it was hammered down. But in that 2013 time point, they started me on two different meds for anxiety and depression. And, I went through a couple more before we finally landed on some that worked. And then I was also on Klonopin, which turned out to be a terrible idea. Especially when they were telling you, we'll take it anytime you feel anxious, which was all the time. And so, you're taking crap loads of that stuff. And I actually started taking so many of it, I found myself a couple times just walking on a run, which is not something that I've ever done in my entire life. I would just be like head in the clouds, and I couldn't stay focused to run. And like,
how many pills were you taking each day? What's your guess?
Probably, and I don't remember the milligrams on the Klonopin. I think it was 5 or 10 milligrams of the Klonopin. I was probably taking at least 6 or 8 a day, sometimes probably more.
Were you on any other medications at the same time too? I mean,
yeah. And so,
full of mental and physical.
I was on I was on an SSRI for the regular stress and anxiety, and the Klonopin was for emergency situations. And then at that point, late 2013, I was still tapering off some of the meds from my relapse. So yeah, that, up until probably early 2014, from 2012 through 2014, that's when you have to have those pill dividers that, like, make sure you take everything, especially when you're on prednisone, because you miss a dose of that, your body goes kind of into the DTs, which is super fun. So that time period was when mental health first came in. And I remember after I landed in a hospital with one of those panic attacks, and I was on the phone with my rheumatologist, who was kind of the quarterback of my coach of my team of medical doctors. He was, he's like, we think your numbers actually look good. We think you might be experiencing some, like, panic and anxiety issues. He's like, which is normal in patients. And here I am 5 years into this. And he's like, that's normal with patients, but, like, nobody's mentioned that to me yet.
That's not what you want to hear.
So
that's not what you want to hear.
No,
you're having these issues, and how do I overcome this? Right. You're a guy used to going out there and being able to set your own targets and your own goals and going out and achieving them. And now they're like, well, you're just going to have to live with this, and it's normal.
Yeah. And so I was actually more pissed. I was like, shouldn't this come, like, not that they give you a pamphlet, but, like, shouldn't this be in the pamphlet? Like, hey, people experiencing, like, potentially life-threatening diseases, like, experience mental health issues. Like, that should kind of be like, all right, you have this is also going to potentially happen. And so that kind of led that whole roller coaster through that time point. Since then I've been able to get off all of those medications, and it's taken a lot of work. I was in therapy for, I saw a therapist regularly for about 3 years in there. I haven't seen one recently, but I've gotten to a place where I experience some of those things, but I've got a good set of tools and skills to help myself through them. And it's an ongoing and constant battle. And, as recently as just like 2 weeks ago, that stuff was crawling up my spine, and the tight chest, and, just dealing with some of the regular things with life and the stress of the Olympics trials coming up in June and the COVID situation and that kind of getting closer and closer in my bubble and in my world, like it just shows up. And, but I now know, I recognize those signs and symptoms. I have a set of skills that I've developed for me that help me get through those with meditation and breathing exercises. And
I want to focus, Rain. I want to focus on, you said something early in our discussion about becoming your own patient advocate. And I mean, that is so pertinent to anybody who has to seek medical care to overcome anything. Give us kind of your take on what that means to you, and if you have any advice to people out there, because just as an aside, to color that question a little bit, what we see in our world of direct care is that when people join a primary care practice, that primary care physician becomes your advocate. It's able to kind of translate what these specialists mean, what these test results mean, but not everybody has that. Actually, very few Americans have it right now as we're trying to,
I don't even have one.
to grow this. But, in your case, that is so powerful. And you learn that very, very early, that most people learn that lesson far too late. So give us kind of what your understanding of becoming your own patient advocate is and why that is so important.
I actually talk a lot with other, especially new patients about this, because I do some patient outreach work for the Vasculitis Foundation, mainly younger patients, but obviously I'll talk to patients of any age. But you've got to fight for yourself. That's what that means for advocacy. Whether it's fight to get the treatment that you feel is right, fight to get the diagnosis. I was dealing with a fellow rare disease patient in the last couple of months that was trying very hard to get a diagnosis and get her doctors to kind of not, I'm not just tired. I know something else is going on. And, whether it's the boundaries that are set up in healthcare, whether it's, laziness, there's bad people in every profession, and there are some lazy doctors out there, and there's some bad apples. And, I never want to point the finger at people like that, but I've encountered them myself. I remember ending up in an argument with an ER doctor one time because one of the treatments I was going through was mimicking chest pain. And so I literally thought I was having a heart attack. And of course I'd landed in the ER, and I was talking to him. He's like, well, like you've got vasculitis. So like, it's probably in your heart. And it's probably just like, you're probably just feeling that because you've got like a good, strong heart and you're skinny. And I was like, if it's in my heart, I'm dying. And no, that's not what this is. So you're arguing with this doctor and you realize that he's literally just basically using Wikipedia to try to help you with this. But like, he was basically not wanting to treat me and try to figure out and test what was going on. And he was like, well, it's in your heart. It's not like, that's just what vasculitis does. And I'm like, if it's in my heart, I'm about to die. And that's not good. And so like, I need you to run tests.
There's something wrong.
Yeah, no, it's not what you want to hear. Yeah. Yeah. So like, you're trying to argue with somebody is a medical professional about like the care that you need to give, or whether it's like the time that I couldn't get my immunotherapy treatment approved when my kidneys were shutting down because my doctor was across state lines. And I'm on the phone with not just health insurance companies, but also the company that makes the medication that I take. And at the time I was literally on that company's website as a success story, and I could not get their treatment. And I nearly lost my kidneys because of it. And I'm talking with a lady on the phone, and I'm like, do you understand the absurdity of this situation, ma'am? And she's like, well, just because of that, like, and she's giving you the lawyer the legalese, like,
sign the release
answer.
Form,
and I was like,
your image.
yeah, I understand that, but I need you to be a freaking human and understand, like, do you not understand the absurdity of this situation? Like, I need this, I can't get it, and my kidneys are shutting down. And if my kidneys shut down, like, I don't know if and when I'd be able to get a transplant. And if I can't get that, I'm going to die. And so you're arguing with these people. And I say this a lot to anybody that I've had to deal with. It's not that you can't do it, it's that you won't do it. And those are two very different things, because they put these things up in the way to say that, oh no, we can't do that. I'm like, no. It's not that you can't, it's that you won't.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that you can't let me speak to my doctor. It's that you won't. It's not that you can't approve this. It's that you won't approve it. And those are two very, very different things. And so you have to fight for those things. And finally, literally I had to basically find in that situation, I had to have my doctor find another doctor that could just write a prescription for me. Like in my own state, because, the mafia wouldn't approve my care for an on-label for just because it was across state lines. So yeah, that's what you have to do. You have to fight for that stuff. And it's, I've certainly, there's been some times I've lost my cool for sure, especially as somebody that's a little bit type A and hot-headed. And then when you're dealing with seemingly life or death situations, luckily I've never gotten to one of those like John Q moments where I've walked in with a gun in any place, but you start to understand why he got to that place.
And hopefully it never comes to that, but I joke, but it is just frustrating because people, like you said, just be a human being. And I think that's one of the biggest things missing from this healthcare industry, as we call it. And, you use the term mafia, we like to call them the insurance cartel. You're just a piece of paper to them. Your number's on a paper, even that. And then, you get to the hospital systems and, I always say that this country has the best medical professionals out of anywhere in the world from our training system. And, there's a reason why only the best and brightest are going into medicine and able to come out the other side of it. But even they're being treated like absolute dog shit, pardon my language, but, and then that just passes down to the patient. So, and a lot of the physicians we talk to say, look, Chris, I just don't have time to spend with my patients to answer their questions and to walk them through this. Or, God forbid, we actually sit down and research something and find the best path to care that we possibly can. Has that been something that you have experienced too? This 4-letter word that is time spent with medical professionals?
Yeah. Obviously and I could be wrong, but the average doctor spends less than 7 minutes with a patient in the room.
Mm-hmm. It's about that.
Yeah. It's roughly about that number. I haven't checked on it in probably a year or two, but I doubt it's changed much. And when you think in my case that a doctor is he's picking up my chart before he walks into my room, now granted, and I have some wonderful, amazing doctors, and there's 2 of them in particular that I really like, or 3 of them in particular that I really owe my life to, because of their willingness to push boundaries, because their willingness to be curious and take me at my word when stuff was going wrong. They're amazing people that I honestly might not would be here if I didn't have them on my team. And luckily enough for them that because of how bad a lot of my stuff got, when they're picking up my chart, it's not oh, I kind of remember this person. It's I had a lot of them cell phone numbers. I had their email addresses. So it got to that point with them. But certainly some of my other doctors that I've been involved with over the years, it's you walk in and you're a number on an assembly line. They
pick up the chart. That's the first time. First time they talk to you is okay, Mr.
6 months or a year.
Hodgins, Mr. Hudgins, whatever.
And they come in and they're so tell me how it's going. And it's didn't I just do this with the nurse? Why am I regurgitating the same information over and over again? But so certainly I've had that experience a lot. Luckily, once I kind of found my core team of doctors of my ENT, my rheumatologist, and then my kidney doctor, those 3 guys, I've got their direct contact information. So I can, and they've been involved enough in my care that they can, spend more time with me. And they've been, it's if I say, hey, I've got stuff going on, I need to get in, I can shoot them a message and they're come today at 12:30. I don't have to deal with the receptionist. I don't have to deal with the nurse's assistant or anybody. I have direct access to them to get in when I need to, because they'll make time because they know if I'm coming in, it's because like shit's hit the fan.
Yeah.
Like it's not because like, oh, he doesn't feel good. He's got the sniffles. It's like, oh no, like he's probably about to die. We need to do something.
It's not the hypochondriac coming in saying, hey, there's something, does this freckle look good on my arm?
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? Just the amount of gatekeepers who are there for an absolute reason. They're absolutely essential because just the way
a doctor can't handle all that.
Industry is built. Yeah. Most physicians on the primary care level, again, where our world mostly is, although we're starting to expand into specialists, most physicians have 2,500 to 3,000 patients that they care for in any given year.
Yeah.
And that is just absolutely absurd. No human being can do that. Going to business school, you're taught that the average person can manage about 5 people, and that's about it.
Yeah. Yep.
You multiply that exponentially. You're like, oh my God, how in the world can these physicians, we're setting them up for failure. And, if we pick on them, it's because we love them and we need them, but we got to show that there's a better way to go about doing this. And what is your experience just psychologically when you're able to shoot a text to a physician saying, hey, I have a quick question for you, and they're able to answer that?
It's meant the world to me, because I know those doctors had my back and had like truly cared about my health. That's never come into play with my core team. Certainly some of the periphery doctors that I've had to deal with over the years. It's been absolutely maddening to not have that, because once you get that level of access, it changes, changes your total, and that's where I really stumbled on that. It's not that you can't do this, it's that you won't do this. And so you start to learn how to kind of snake your way through the system and get that access you need. But the thing that really changed, really plowed a rut through my brain, is 2018. I actually got and I probably should have mentioned him as part of my kind of core team now. Although I don't see him often, I've got an integrative medicine doctor who actually studied under my kidney doctor, who is Dr. Fox, one of the biggest kidney vasculitis research doctors in the country. He's been at Chapel Hill for 25 or 30 years. He's been doing research on kidneys and vasculitis and other kidney stuff for 40 years. But that integrative medicine doctor got frustrated with the healthcare system after going through school and stuff and doing his residency, and decided to actually open an integrative clinic. And so I actually have an integrative medicine doctor. And when I went and sat down with Dr. Pendergraph, I was literally sitting in the waiting room filling out the rudimentary charts that or the paperwork that we've all filled out 4,000 times, that somehow in 2021 we haven't found a way to streamline that information yet.
We get questions by doctors saying, what do I do for a fax machine? And we say, if you work with Freedom Healthworks, you don't need a fax machine anymore. It's amazing. There's technology around us.
Yeah. Well, my chart's kind of starting to do that from my chart's kind of starting to pull in a lot of that stuff, but still you find yourself filling out the same information. I was like, can I hand you a thumb drive or something with all this on it? But I was literally in the process of filling all that out, and Dr. Pendergraph, Will walked out of the back, took the charts out of my hand, put them up on the counter of the receptionist, and said, come on. An hour and a half later, I walked out of his room. Wow. He spent over an hour and a half with me sitting in the room talking to him. Because I had contacted him about some specific problems that I was seeing as I had come off all of these hard immunotherapy drugs and stuff. And I was, it was a very performance minded. I was healthy. I had, cause I had after I qualified for the Olympic trials in 2016, of course I had to fall on my face again and get really sick. And so 17 and 18 were really, really about me getting my health back under control. So I could take another shot at this. And I had some very specific questions that wasn't life or death stuff, but I was having some problems with certain numbers not wanting to kind of return to the regular things. And I sent him a quick message, because I had actually met him at one of the international vasculitis symposiums and found out he was 45 minutes from my house. And so I was excited.
Kind of meant to be.
Yeah, exactly. When you're and kudos to the VF for bringing in integrative medicine doctors in 2017 to speak amongst the other doctors on those panels. And I was that's a guy I need to talk to. And so he took me on, and it was very much just, he's like, he basically did kind of what we're doing. He just like took the chart and said, like, he's like, I read about you before you came in, but I want to hear it from you. Just tell me everything. And he's like, don't worry about the time. Just tell me everything. And so we went through everything. We went through all this stuff that I've been with you. And because like, he recognizes that like, so much of the problems too of healthcare is like, it's fragmented, right? I've got all these different doctors, some of them, and luckily I haven't had this trouble, but like, there's a lot of other patients that have literally doctors fighting over what's the proper care. And the patient gets stuck in the middle and they're mad. The other doctor's mad because they think this is right. They think this is right. And so you get like, and I've seen this happen too many times. You get a patient that's in rural America that doesn't have a specialist near them. And so they travel somewhere like, the Mayo Clinic or like Penn or Cleveland Clinic to get, care from one of those doctors. And then those doctors then like pass on the information to the local person. And that local person's like, nah, like I've never dealt with this disease, but like, I think this is better because I don't like that. And it's like nearly killed patients and like that. So there's all these problems with it. And like the integrative medicine world and is kind of like the direct care, like, basically he's just on a retainer. And so like, I contact him when I need him. Right. And so, and it doesn't matter if I've got the sniffles with my integrative or, I'm dealing with a relapse, like he's somebody I can talk to from that. And if, we need to go somewhere outside of him, obviously he can refer me. But, the integrative medicine world can get a little weird. There's a little, certainly Dr. Pendergraft's not in that world, but like when I was doing research on that early on, like it gets a little voodoo-y. Like you can get people rubbing crystals and I'm like, no, I need some medicine. But like, so you kind of have to, be careful with some of those practices, but it changed a lot about how I thought about the system because this, I was like, here's somebody that's seeing 6, 7, 8 patients a day instead of like 50 or 60 in a day. Right. And he keeps, you get that, like when you schedule an appointment with him, you get an hour scheduled. And then they're like, if he doesn't have somebody after you, he's not opposed to spending more time with you. Right. So yeah, you've got to.
It's turning patients back into people again. And that's something I love. And it just underscores how important that, some people scoff at the term, doctor-patient relationship and just how important that is. Because, that's not something that's tangible. If people are like, well, I want my doctor-patient relationship to be write me a prescription anytime I need it. No. That's not what we're talking about here. It really goes back to what we're talking about that magic 4-letter word of time and just having a conversation because a lot of people get stressed. And I think a lot of that white coat syndrome comes from the fact that people only have 7 minutes. And so they're trying to think of every question that they possibly have and everything that's wrong with me. And you get complex cases like yourself. And, this is, I'm just talking about normal people who go in for a physical and have a ton of questions. And I'm thinking, why don't you just ask those questions when they pop up and just, have a little text message that goes to your physician. If you can't text your physician right now or call them whenever you need them, maybe you look at changing that care or talking to your physician. It's like my dad has this funny shirt that says, if you don't talk to your cat about catnip, who will? And I'm kind of saying, if you don't talk to your doctor about the absolute inefficiencies of their care model, who will? Because they need to hear it from patients on that ground level support. But I want to focus now. So you've had an incredible story. The 2010s were kind of a roller coaster up and down, and you kind of had that kind of double dip of back in the depths, and you got to pick yourself back up. So pull yourself out with your bootstraps. Now you have a trusted medical team around you. You found somebody who, okay, I can ask the questions that I have about this disease, but that disease is a very small part of your life. You're not gonna let that define you. Tell us about your kind of redemption story here, getting back and circling the 2020 Olympic trials on your calendar.
Yeah. So to kind of, this is as awesome as it was to qualify for the Olympic trials in 2016. I didn't handle it very well. I was still very much white knuckling life. And when I got to Eugene, Oregon and stood on the starting line for you got it to to make the team, they take 30 people in my event to Olympic trials, and over 3 different rounds, they narrow it down to basically the 3 that cross the finish line in the final. I didn't make the final. I made the semifinal, and I knew with my talent level and the shape that I'd found myself in, I deserved to at least be in the final, which was the final 12 people that were vying for those 3 spots. I didn't handle it well. Everything that I had been through over those basically previous 8 years as a patient, and a runner, like that was a weight on my shoulders. It was, and it should be stressful, right? Because it's something that you care about, that you've thought about and dreamed about since you were 13 or 14 years old. And I'm not certainly one to say like, oh, I don't like the pressure and stuff, but like I didn't handle it well, and it should have been fun. And I should have had a lot of power in what I had been through, instead of it was kind of like a weight dragging behind me. It's still hard for me to watch those prelim races. Not just the mistakes that I made tactically, but like I look heavy, even though I was like super lean. Like I looked heavy. I didn't look at my best, right? Like you can tell from my posture that I wasn't healthy, right? Mentally. And that's when you're going up against the best in the country and ultimately the world. Cause like one of the guys that made our Olympic team, like he won the Olympic games in my event. He was the best person in the world that year. And so when you're going against those type people, and, you know, and not to disparage my competitors, but like none of them have gone through what I have. And that should be empowering. And so after that, you know, I was like kind of hell-bent to get back there and make it what I thought it should be. Obviously I took a health tumble. And I think a lot of that was basically because of where I had taken my body, both physically and mentally, to get there. So, you know, I made a pact with myself and my girlfriend, who's been with me for 11 years now. So she's been through the ringer with me, and, you know, she stuck by me when I was not at my best and a little too into myself. And just a little too selfish with the way that I was acting, and kind of just not caring whether I lived or died. I was living hard, training hard, partying hard. Like I just didn't care, because I was like, this thing got yanked away from me and I'm going to do it to the full extent. So we made a pact. It's like, if you're going to do this again, you can't do it like that. And so that's what the redemption part of this story has been about for the last, well, originally from 2018 through 2020, but obviously COVID hit and gave me an extra year, or took an extra year away from me, depending on how you look at a 34-year-old body that's still trying to run really fast. Which I recognize I'm not very old, but as far as like when I line up, I'll be 8 to 10 years older than most of the guys standing on the starting line. It certainly can be done. But it's, you know, father time catches everybody at some point in time. So I'm certainly trying to run away from him right now. But, you know, COVID's obviously prevented some interesting struggles over the last year as far as training and getting everything I need, and then traveling, right. You know, it's been tough to kind of figure out what's safe, what's not safe. But those are things that I can, luckily, because of the access that I have to my doctors, I can ask those questions when I have them. I had one the other day about like, you know, some stuff as far as travel and what they thought was safe and not safe. And I was able to type up a little email, and within 24 hours, I had the answer that I needed. So it's given me that power. It's given me that power to make those decisions, right? As a patient. And I've, you know, luckily, like we've talked about, like I've had those. And so that gives me the, you know, the freedom to kind of operate within those rules and boundaries of things that I know, to try to keep myself safe during, you know, these next couple of months as I venture out into the world that looks very, very different.
Mm-hmm. I love that you use the word freedom. You know, I didn't, you're not getting paid to, you know, give us a little plug right there, but you know, that's why we named our company that, right? And that's why we said this, is like, there's one word that almost every conversation that I have and our team has with doctors and patients and people who've used the system is just like, I feel so constrained. I feel lost, or I feel abandoned going through the status quo in the system. And I don't want my disease or my condition or whatever it is to define me, but yet it becomes so all consuming. And that's why, you know, I love your story, and really, you know, my hat's off to you, being able to overcome a disease again with a 5% survival rate when you're first diagnosed. I mean, gosh, how inspiring is that? And then to continue to follow your dream, even after stumbles and relapses, and this disease just refused to go away. And it's an incredible story you have, Brandon. It really, really is. And I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing it with us. And hopefully your work, being active in the VF, can help change people's lives and show them that, look, I overcame this, and I'm still pursuing my dream, and I didn't let a disease win.
That's very much what, and this was not planned, by the way. It's just a shirt that I wear all the time. But if people can see here, I'm wearing a shirt that says "Victory Over Vasculitis," and it's actually the campaign that I started with the Vasculitis Foundation in 2016. I wear this shirt because it's super comfortable, but it's one of those super soft cotton shirts. But
Yeah.
it just so happened to be what I put on when I rolled out of bed today. But it is a campaign that's about empowering patients to continue chasing their dreams after diagnosis, because patients honestly don't look like me most of the time when they're diagnosed. The average vasculitis patient is a mid to late 40s, early 50s female. Actually, it skews 60% female, and it skews older. So I because of the mass number of them being vastly different from my background. Now, there's certainly some obviously younger patients, and as diagnostic tools have gotten better over the last decade, I think those numbers are starting to shift a little bit. And I don't know whether more people are getting diagnosed or whether more people are starting to have some of these issues. I don't know which one those are, but it's given me, because most of them don't have athletic backgrounds, most of them don't have sport backgrounds. They come from the regular American life. And I don't mean that as like insulting, but it gives me the opportunity to be like, hey, this thing punched you in the face. It just, it destroyed your finances. It destroyed your family. It potentially cost you a marriage or a relationship. It's strained everything in your life. Here's some skills and tools that we've used to empower each other and develop a community with each other. Because, it is a rare disease, and it's not something like cancer where 2 or 3 out of 5 people are going to have it. And so it's a, you're talking about 2 to 3 per million. And so it's kind of about finding each other and developing a sense of community. And, over the last 4 years, I've developed a close group of fellow young adult patients that are all roughly late 20s, early 30s, all got diagnosed in our teens or early 20s. And we really lean on each other a lot when stuff's going bad. Cause like I can say to them, man, I'm really down in the dumps. This is bad. Like, I don't feel good, or, and they're not going to be like, don't talk to me about that. Like, don't be a Debbie Downer. Like, it's about developing that sense of community when you can talk to somebody legitimately about the things going on, either mentally or physically with your body, and them be understanding and caring, and like you've talked about, like treating you like a human. And that's developing that community has been like one of the biggest like achievements, I think, in my life, and pulling some people together that really are doing some incredible things. And in fact, like through my patient outreach work, you start experiencing things like there's legitimately 3 people that have been diagnosed with the exact same disease that I have. And they knew about the disease because of me before they got diagnosed. And when they got diagnosed, they're like, oh, this is that thing that Brandon has. And so they immediately had a group of people to plug into. And that was really, really powerful when those things happened and came about. It was like, you won't believe just what happened to me. And so, or, one of them I was talking to kind of in the lead up to some of it. And I was like, that sounds like what I have. And certainly you don't want to, I'm not a doctor, I can't diagnose anybody, but like, you need to chase this. And so when those kind of things kind of happened, it was kind of like a sobering moment of like, not only have I had an impact on like the small community that we have, but like that's a direct impact on 3 people's lives that already ended up with a support network because of the outreach that we've been able to do.
And who knows how many lives that they are able to touch too, and everything continues that ripple effect out. And keeping going. So Brandon, hey, keep up the awesome work. It's amazing to hear your story again, and keep touching lives, keep showing people that, there's a way through this, and keep motivating them and inspiring them to fight. And good luck running the trials here. I know we'll be keeping track of you, and hopefully able to call your number up there and be representing the red, white, and blue.
That would be awesome. I thank you so much, Chris, for taking the time to chat with me today. And honestly, like, giving a voice to patients and to doctors that are super frustrated with this system. I think that's my biggest frustration with the healthcare industry as a whole, is that people aren't having the right conversations. And kudos to you and your team and what y'all are doing to try to make a real impact and force those conversations to be had and provide some opportunities for people to get the care that they need, man.
I appreciate that. And, telling these stories it shows people that they're not alone, and nobody operates in a silo. And so there's a huge undercurrent of demand from people who want better care, who want to experience absolute, a different way to access medical care. And there's a lot of physicians out there who realize that they need to take time with physicians. They want to care for people like they know how, like they're trained. So we'll keep fighting on our end. You keep fighting on your end. All right.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much.
That's going to do it for this episode of Healthcare Americana. Once again, I'm your host, Christopher Habig. To check out all of our episodes, visit healthcareamericana.com. And to learn more about direct care, visit freedomhealthworks.com. Thanks for listening. Hi again, everyone. This is Chris. At Healthcare Americana, we're always on the lookout for great stories to tell in the healthcare industry. And we'd like to hear yours. Check out healthcareamericana.com and send us your ideas for episodes, or if you'd like to be a guest. Thanks again for listening. Hope you enjoy it.